Welcome to It's a Grand Life. Did you know that in the United States alone, 2.4 million kids are being raised by their grandparents or other family members other than mom or dad? 2.4 million. It's a Grand Life is a podcast for those grandparents and kinship caregivers who are committed to making a difference for those kids. Grand families are in every neighborhood, every city, tribe, and territory nationwide. If this is you or someone you love, this podcast is for you. Our goal is to offer hope and resources to help you. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel or follow us wherever you get your audio podcasts and leave a review. Every new subscriber and review helps us reach others that need assistance. Welcome to another episode of It's a Grand Life. Hello, my name is Craig Nash, and we'd like to welcome you to another It's a Grand Life. And you're absolutely going to be blessed today as we're headed to Pennsylvania. We're going to talk to one of my fellow colleagues on the Generations United Grand Voice group. Her name is Char, and she's kind of taken the whole state of Pennsylvania by the horns and trying to organize some folks and generate some interest on how to support grand families and kinship caregivers in Pennsylvania. And we're also going to discuss a subject that has become really close to my heart in the past couple months, and that is bullying. How do we grand families and kinship caregivers address that situation? So Char from Pennsylvania, welcome to It's a Grand Life, and love to, thanks for coming on today, and really look forward to hear what's going on in Pennsylvania.
Well, thank you. It's nice to see you today.
And we are normally on calls with 84 other folks as part of the Generations United Grand Voices. But why don't you share with our audience what's been happening in Pennsylvania regarding the opiate issues? I know you've been all over this idea of taking opiate settlement money and trying to support grand families. How is that working for you in Pennsylvania?
Well, quite honestly, not well. There was a opioid settlement trust formed, and when I have inquired with a couple of people about where the settlement money is going, it's pretty tight-lipped. I've been told that the money's already earmarked, and this is I feel like so many things, it's a political issue. I've been told the trust money is earmarked. And then when I went to my state representative to ask about that, I was told also by that person that they think the money is already earmarked, and I don't know what it's earmarked for.
Right.
So billions of dollars. Pennsylvania is supposedly getting billions of dollars.
Right.
And I don't know where that money's going.
And you almost are afraid that it's going to end up in just the large account that pays for all the bills in Pennsylvania or Michigan, where I'm from, as opposed to really helping families that are really suffering because of what's gone on in their personal situations. But you've been kind of all over the opiate issue in Pennsylvania, and you're farther along than I am. I mean, at least they're talking and making excuses of where the monies are. And is there any hope of kind of shaking some of that loose to support the families that really need it?
I don't believe so. I think that this trust has been established. There's no opportunity to really provide input from the community that I can see. Maybe I missed something, but I feel like it's pretty well locked up. And one of the things that I know is going to happen is some of the money at least is going to go to treatment facilities, which I think is helpful, but having an adult child go through 5 treatment facilities and continue to relapse, I'm not so sure that that's where the best placement of money is. I think that we do need to invest in this generation of children who have been left because their parents fell into addiction with opioids. And those of us who are raising them need some support. So I'd like to see something like that happening.
And it can be challenging, Char, when you look at the foster families they're doing a great job or trying to do a great job raising the kids in their program, but they have a greater access to support than the kinship caregiver families or grand families that actually are not part of the foster care network for a variety of reasons. Maybe the first and foremost, maybe you don't want the government intervention in your life, but are you seeing any positive information out of Pennsylvania to support grand families that aren't part of the foster system, or is that still a battle?
It's a battle, but I do see a little bit of movement. I know where I live, there was a project that awarded under $1,000 to about, I don't know the number, but there were under a certain amount of people, because of their low income level, received a stipend as part of the informal caregivers. And so that was a step in the right direction, but that was a very limited audience to receive any assistance. And to give you an example of the difference between formal care and informal, there's a woman who lives near me and is also raising her grandchild. Our grandchildren are in the same school. And we had a conversation recently, and she said, oh, when I got my grandchildren, I was amazed at what was done for me. The foster care agency brought all this stuff to my house, clothing and cribs and all these resources. She said, I had so much stuff that I had to take it to the Goodwill.
Oh.
And I just stood there thinking to myself, what? Because we got nothing. I went out to the store when my grandchild came into our house at 4 months old. I didn't have a crib. I didn't have formula. I didn't have diapers. I didn't have anything. But the difference is the child welfare agency wasn't involved in getting him to me. Right. My husband and I stepped in and took charge of him while we sought help for our daughter. So different situation.
So how long have you been raising your grandson?
It has been almost 13 years.
Okay, 13 years, and that's a long time with no support, right? And that's our story in Michigan is 10 years, but we talk to folks all the time that are really, really struggling financially, and these grandparents really didn't plan that well for their own retirement. And now they've got 1 to 3 additional mouths to feed, and they are struggling. And housing is an issue, and transportation is an issue, and maybe healthcare is not an issue because of Medicare. But crying out loud, just the basic necessities of life, and with this crazy inflation that's going on, and averaging 20% or so, it's really set grand families back nationally, and it's been hard to make ends meet. Don't you see that too?
I do see that. And one thing that when you're in an informal situation and the child welfare agency has not stepped in and placed a child in your home, then you're doing it out of what you know is right to do for your flesh and blood.
Right.
But the downside of that for us too was legal fees, because unfortunately, the father was also struggling with addiction. He had a family friend. The family had a friend who took us to court to get custody of our grandchild. And that launched a couple-year court case, which we had to then hire a lawyer for. And it cost us $85,000 in legal fees to keep our grandchild with us. We knew that the father was still using, and we didn't want him to go there for that reason. But it was quite a tap dance back and forth for a couple of years. And every time a motion was filed or something, we had to go back to court, and we had to have our lawyer prepare. So, and at $360 an hour for a lawyer, people are astonished at that amount for a court case, but hey, do the math. That's easy to do.
It's real
So,
easy to do,
so
especially
you get
over.
punished, you're being punished for doing what you feel is right. And sadly, the father died of an overdose. And so we were glad that our grandchild was with us, or the grandchild would have probably found his father dead.
Right, right.
And that would have been another trauma on him. So it's upside down, the way the world is thinking on this issue to me.
It's totally upside down. And Char, I thought I'd heard it all. I've talked to a lot of our colleagues here on It's a Grand Life. I had not heard about 85,000 in legal fees. That
Mhm.
is, that's that cottage you wanted in Pennsylvania. Maybe that you for a nice down payment on one, and where you could take your grand and just enjoy the summer. But that was not to be. That ended up, obviously, you would do anything like we would for our grandchild, and we continue to do that. You're at 13 years, we're at 10, but you don't anticipate that you're going to have to go to court with a drug addict to be able to maintain the stability and sanity of your grandchild. But that's what we grand families are all about, right?
Right. And it's very scary because every time you would go into the court, you never knew what was going to happen. If that might be the day that you're going to have to say, okay, well, bye, you've been placed otherwise. And that would have been a gut-wrenching thing for us. So
Now, are you guardians of your grand right now?
we have legal custody.
Legal custody. Okay, great. And that's in Pennsylvania. That's how they do it with legal custody that way. But you've that's just amazing. But that's just part of the battle. That's part of your journey and your story. And I'm so glad you're a grand voice because you can really speak to families that have had that legal battle. And my wife is an attorney, but doesn't do anything in the child welfare area at all. And so we had to have an attorney help us with the guardianship. And we were very thankful when that process was over, because the attorney that we had was not as well versed in handling these cases, or had so many personal issues that we were afraid this was going to take forever to get done. And we just needed it done, especially before school started, because Char, when your grand is in school, if you don't have legal custody, you can't find out when the homework's due. You can't even talk to the teachers or the principal.
Right. And that's what in Pennsylvania, we couldn't enroll him in school without legal custody.
Wow.
So what happened was eventually the court case with the father was resolved because of he was charged with child endangerment, actually, and that stopped visitation, and that kind of put the nail through it all for him, because if he couldn't overcome his addiction problem. But then our daughter was in treatment, and we had to enroll our grandson in school. And so that was one of the hardest days of my life, was to tell her that we now are going to have to take legal custody from her because we need the document to enroll him in school. And that was very hard, and that has since caused a lot of animosity,
Right.
which hasn't healed. But it's hard. You do what you can to support this child that needs an advocate, and yet you get beat up on a lot of different fronts for doing it. So
You do.
yeah.
But we had a friend before we took any legal action at all. We kept naively thinking things were going to change, and that eventually our child was going to request treatment, and we tried an intervention one time, and that was, of course, brushed back and everything, and that we're really going to hit bottom, and we're going to want to get better. We'd already sent our child to Betty Ford and some of these other places, and really hoping that this was going to happen, but there was no sincerity in the recovery process, and so she unfortunately is still back on the streets of Detroit and trying to find her way. We pray for her every day, and can't wait for the positive outcome that we're hoping this story will have. And we pray for that every day. But in the meantime, we had one of our friends from our old church say, who just completed raising her grand. She was in her early 80s, Char, and her grand just graduated from high school. And she said, Craig and Kathy, you guys have to make a decision. Are you going to be the advocate for your granddaughter, or are you going to just stay in here waiting for your daughter to change? And your daughter's already made her decision. You need to make the decision. And that's when things really started to move forward for us. We were having emotionally a hard time making the tough call.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, it's really a sad situation. And, this is something where I believe my faith has carried me through, because we were members of our local church and active members. And I went to church one day when this was all crashing down on me. And I looked at my friend who was a lawyer at the time. And I said, can I talk to you? And she said, yes, what's the matter? And I said, I've got my grandchild, my infant grandchild. And she said, let's talk. And she was my custody lawyer.
oh, great.
So I feel that intervention at the church, that opportunity to connect with her at that time, was meant to be. Because in most cases, I don't know that Pittsburgh's very backwards. I maybe shouldn't have mentioned that. Pennsylvania is very backwards. And so I always say, if there's a nuclear war, come to Pennsylvania, because it won't hit here for 5 years. And that's why I feel
get some takers now with this crazy culture we're in.
Yeah, yeah. But with the legal profession, from what I've seen, not a lot of these attorneys seem equipped to really navigate or understand the whole situation with custody in these kids. So
that is 100% true. And what you were just describing is something I hear a lot on the here at It's a Grand Life, where there's a God moment where he intervenes and he connects you or the grandparent with the right person to help navigate these troubled waters. And I hear this over and over again. And I know in a culture where we don't talk about faith as much anymore or anything like that, but on this podcast we do, because we know that without these God moments, we'd be in deep weeds. And just very thankful for that. And to worship with the right attorney is amazing. And
yes,
and that obviously puts you on the right path to get the legal custody in place in Pennsylvania, so that your grand could be in school and get all the other support and supervision that a normal parent would have through the grandparent. And although you did not anticipate $85,000 in legal fees addressing the father in that situation, but Char, I wanted to. One of the reasons you and I connected was because I had a situation with my grand where Grace was bullied at school, and I wanted to reach out to some of my colleagues, and you responded, and a couple of our other folks have as well, and wanted to get everybody's take on how did you address bullying. I've reached out to the principal of my granddaughter's school, and hopefully we're going to have him on to talk about how they address it at the elementary school level. But how did you deal with it, Char, in Pennsylvania, and what was the outcome of the situation?
well, there were actually 2 incidents of bullying that we experienced. One was early in elementary school. My grandson would be coming home from school, and kids were tackling him, pushing him down into the ground. And it was beyond just horseplay. It was mean bullying. And he came into the house crying and said, will you please do something? So that tells me, yes, it's time to do something. It's no longer fun. It's no longer horseplay. So I called the principal's office and I said, look, I know that this is taking place outside of the school, and that's probably not your responsibility, but my grandchild is being mistreated, And I can go up and meet. We have a walking district, so I said I can go up and meet him each day and walk him home to make sure that he's okay on the way home. That's with something. And she stepped right up and she said, no, this is my responsibility and I will address it. And so she did reach out, and I called the parents myself. I called the two sets of parents. One set of parents was very apologetic and assured me that they would talk to their child. The other parent was actually twisted it back on me and said, oh, well, I saw your grandchild just running out into the street and they better be careful. And I'm like, okay, well, you don't really want to take responsibility for your child's behavior. I get it. But it did stop. And then more recently, my grandchild he finished 7th grade. At the beginning of 7th grade, he took his articles that he needed to gym class because he didn't have time to get to the locker between classes. So he had to carry his pencil case that had his calculator, his laptop, and other items to gym class so he would be on time. And when they came out of gym and the students lined up against the wall for the bell to ring, a couple of kids grabbed his articles and started passing them around and wouldn't give them back to him. And then they got rid of them. So my grandson told me about it. So I called the principal's office and I said, my grandson's items were stolen from him. This is bullying, and I wanted to alert you to that. And I'd like to know, do you plan to do anything about this? Or if not, I will do something about it. And that principal, again, was on her toes. And she said, oh no, she said, this is definitely something I want to deal with. So it turns out that in the schools, there are video cameras. And that's something that's good to know. I think most schools today have video feed. And the principal and the vice principal went back and watched the video, and they could see my grandchild standing there, putting his hand out like, give it back, and what was going on. And so they dealt with it. And those students were called on the carpet, and I'm sure I don't know what happened from there, but they did not do it again. So I had good
able to get the laptop back and everything else, or whatever.
Yeah, everything came back. Everything got back. The pencil case with the calculator was thrown into the trash. The janitor had, I think, found it.
Okay.
So everything was restored.
So it sounds to me like the key to that whole positive resolution was leadership at the school.
Absolutely.
You had decisive leaders at the elementary and the middle school who jumped right in and said, we don't need another meeting. Let's just go to the parents, or let's go directly to the student and get this addressed. And so obviously in Pennsylvania, they have school policies addressing bullying.
Very much so.
And we want to stop it. We want to stop it right now. And that's the key. And I'm not sure we have that in Michigan, but boy, that's the situation with my grand was that I go to the bus. I'm sure you've gone to the bus. If your grand needs to go to the bus, and so I meet all the parents, and they're nice to me, even though I'm like a million years older than them, but they sometimes they'll ask me about the situation with my daughter, who's unfortunately still on the streets of Detroit, and they will have a concerning conversation to me, is what I at least what I perceive is a neighbor reaching out to another neighbor, trying to be empathetic with the situation. And with a couple cases, after a discussion with the parents, what I said to the parent was, unfortunately, my grand has not seen her mom in 2 years. Well, that information went back to their kids, and the kids at school said, well, look, if you have not seen your mom in 2 years, she's probably dead. Oh. And that is, just terrifying and traumatic for our granddaughter to have to deal with that. And obviously that's bullying. And what is interesting that the other parents in the class, a couple of the moms got very upset with that and went to the principal. And although we did not have any action like what you're talking about, and what really concerned me is that I see these folks at the bus. I like them. We're friendly and what have you. I don't think that I don't know that they told their child directly what had happened, or if they were talking to their spouse and the child heard it. But it's very upsetting, and I wanted to know if you were me, how would you have dealt with that?
Honestly, I think I would probably reach out and talk to the parents and just say, this has been a very hard situation in our family. Maybe you don't understand what families go through when there's an addiction issue, a substance use disorder, but I would like to tell you how difficult this is and ask for your support to try to understand, because my grandchild had nothing to do with this. It has changed our lives dramatically, and we really need your support. So whatever you can do to build us up as a family unit and support our child being sensitive to their emotional needs, we would appreciate it. And I think most people are good, but there is tongue wagging. I know there is. I always figure if anyone who feels that they are holier than thou because they don't have this situation, they're lucky by the grace of God that they don't. And most every family has a family member that struggles with some kind of addiction or another.
Right.
I think just the opioid addiction is kind of an extreme situation because it rolls into all kinds of other stuff. But everybody's in it together and everyone has these challenges. So I think just talking with them is, if you can.
I think that's great advice, and I'm really glad I asked you that. And that seems to be the safe way to do that for the parents. Also, you're not going to the school, you're going directly to them, and they can, you're giving them an opportunity to straighten their house out before you escalate it and going to the authorities. And I really like that. And hopefully they, sometimes I think when issues don't affect folks, they just open their mouth and, as you would say, tongues wag. And I find it hard to believe that they would want to hurt this little girl who they've seen at the bus stop with their son, for, I don't know, 5 years now. So it's that's really, really good stuff. And Char, I'm just so glad that we've had the time to discuss some of the issues that you've been wrestling with in Pennsylvania and this whole idea of bullying. But I think we need to have you back on to talk about your extensive advocacy work on behalf of the citizens of Pennsylvania, with the tip sheets you've prepared and the Grandparents Raising Grandkids Advisory Council and other things. And would you be kind enough to come back and
Absolutely.
and update us on that?
Absolutely.
That would be absolutely great. It's just been my pleasure to get to know you a little bit. And I know our audience really appreciated your wise counsel. And unfortunately, we get this wisdom because we've been through it. And we'd rather, what did Solomon say? It's better if you learn it from your neighbor as opposed to going through it yourself. But unfortunately, you and I have had to go through some things. But thank you so much for being our guest here on It's a Grand Life. And if you can believe it, the time has flown by. But Char is going to come back and give us an update on some of the advocacy work that she's done in Pennsylvania. You don't want to miss that because it'll apply in your state as well. And these wonderful folks from Generations United have all this history and experience trying to right the ship for grand families and kinship caregivers that are raising their grandkids. So Char, thanks so much for being our guest. And we look forward to seeing you next time on It's a Grand Life.
Well, thank you. And thank you for everything you're doing. And a big shout out to Generations United. They've been a lifesaver to me.
And same here. And so friends, we'll see you all next time on It's a Grand Life. Thank you for joining us today for It's a Grand Life. It's a Grand Life provides vital content, regulatory updates, and subject matter experts that are committed to supporting the 2.4 million kids and their caregivers from every neighborhood, every city, every tribe and territory nationwide. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts and leave a review. Every new subscriber and review helps us reach others that need assistance. As caregivers, we are united in purpose. We are driven by hope while providing strength for today and hope for tomorrow. We are truly making a difference while living the grand life. If you have a suggestion for a future episode, please reach out to us. But we'll see you next time for another It's a Grand Life. Thank you for joining us.